Welcome to the Inside the Sales Playbook show, where on each and every episode, we dive into the actual sales processes, plays, and strategies working for sales teams today. No high-level overview, we get into the actual weeds of what some of the fastest growing and most successful sales teams are doing today to drive revenue and grow their businesses. And we've got two sponsors. Inside the Sales Playbook is sponsored by SalesKit. SalesKit takes the guesswork out of scaling your sales knowledge all on one great platform. No longer do you have to have your sales knowledge spread out on Google Drives and on Dropbox and on various other files and folders and saved locally on your own computer. SalesKit makes it easier than ever for your team to access the sales knowledge that actually works. You can sign up for a free trial at getsaleskit.com. And buy my book, Raise Your Standards, the definitive guide to building seven-figure sales. You can get a copy of this book to help grow your sales, whether you're an entrepreneur, a sales leader, or a sales contributor at getsaleskit.com/book. Let's get into the show. And I'm your host, Mark Evans, and today I'm here with Paul Duntemann at VNN. Now, Paul, welcome to the show, man. So excited to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk with you and hopefully provide some insight for people around how we've been building our team.
I know we will. We've had some great conversations in the past. So, Paul, I know that the audience is really going to get a lot of value from you. So, Paul is the inside manager at VNN. And, Paul, what I want you to do is just give the listeners and viewers some context. What is VNN, and how do you help them achieve their mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So, VNN, formerly Varsity News Network, you may know us from that name, but we develop platforms, all digital, online for high school athletic programs to be able to host all information no matter what they're posting for any of the teams. And so half of our team is working with our schools to try to connect with the athletic directors and have them provide a platform for their coaches to be able to connect with the community. And our community is then going to the websites for schedules and finding out, are sports even playing right now? We're finding a lot of schools are now implementing online ticketing, so we're hosting our platform for all of that. And then the team I'm on, our inside sales team, we are working with our local businesses in each of these school communities, and we're developing advertising on the athletic websites to help support the schools and then also to help exclusively promote our local insurance agents, realtors, restaurants, etc. So our main mission is connecting communities through sport. And so we do that with a wide range of working with our schools, our businesses, and now our community too, with helping them find easier ways to do no-touch ticketing and registration and different things like that.
Yeah, I really like that. I've got like 100 questions that I want to dive into regarding how your business has been impacted, how your sales team has changed since COVID-19. But before we dive into that, that was a really good overview. Paul, you're a heck of a nice guy. You're super smart. How the heck did you even get into sales, and why did you choose sales as a career and as a profession?
Yeah, great question. To be honest, I never thought I would be in sales, let alone leading a sales team. So I'll do a shorter answer, but kind of take you through the history of how this happened. So in college as an intern, I was really interested in sports, and actually the hiring manager at that time, I worked in a college class with her, and I saw it and I was like, oh, I know Aaron. I'd love to work for this company, and got hired on actually as our inbound school support team. So I worked with coaches and athletic directors on how to use their platform. So I had really great experience on the support side, and Aaron actually started building out an advertising team. So I joined that team and essentially did support like we did for our schools, but for our advertiser. And inside of that, I found I really enjoyed just having conversation about local businesses' stories. So learning, why did they start their business? How are they connecting with their communities? And just saw such a great fit for advertising with our athletic websites for these local businesses that thought I would try out just selling over the phone and being able to find, hey, let's see if we can connect with our local businesses over the phone as opposed to having to go in person. So I started calling and really enjoyed those conversations with, again, learning just these stories about our local businesses and helping develop really great campaigns for them. And so we found this was a great revenue opportunity for VNN. We were able to do this all in-house and over the phone, and found it was scalable. So we started building out this team in February of 2019 and have been going strong ever since. So yeah, I didn't know I had a passion for sales until I found out sales is really just leadership in the mindset of just learning about someone else. And if you have a solution, work with them on finding that solution and building it for them.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice for these accidental sales managers. There's more people out there than I think we all realize. So,
Yeah.
Paul, what makes a really good inside sales manager, especially at a growing company just like VNN?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think having an attitude of learning every single day. So I think there's a couple of questions that I'll ask myself each day. One is, how can I get better? And then two is, how can I make my team better today? And three, how can I make my customers better today? So I think having a mindset of always learning, and I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room, so it's empowering even the team to help come up with creative solutions, and joining networking groups and being vulnerable even with other sales managers. It could feel lonely sometimes, especially in an inside role. And so being able to connect with others. I have some great friends that are also sales managers in different companies. So joining networking groups and getting involved with them. But yeah, being in a place of just constantly growing and learning, and then being able to share that with your team and help them think in a similar process.
That's really cool. So the three questions you ask yourself every day: how can I get better as a manager, I would imagine? How can my team get better today? And then how can my customers get better today? I really like those. Those are three awesome questions. And those are ones you ask yourself every day.
Yep.
That's great. All right. Well, let's transition a little bit into onboarding and training. This is a topic that everybody from CEOs, founders, sales leaders all want to talk about, right? Everybody is trying to reduce their ramp time and increase the quality of their training process. So what does the onboarding and training process look like on your team at VNN?
Yes. Great question. So we're still fine-tuning this. Being a newer team, we're trying to find the best way to do training and onboarding. Luckily enough, our product is really straightforward, and it really is just storytelling and helping our businesses think about how they want to connect with the community. So our training is actually really quick. It's about 3 to 4 days of actual sit-down training, and then our reps are able to get on the phone really on their own day 4 or 5 and on after that. And so inside of the training, a huge believer in having a repeatable sales process. And when I say process, it's more of a framework. So we break down the sales cycle each day after we go through the why VNN exists. So the first day really training is, who's VNN, why do we exist, and why are we important for our customers, both our schools and our advertisers, and really our communities too. So we'll go through that process, and then after we have a really good understanding of why we exist and what our mission is, then we'll break down the sales cycle. So I can actually go into a little bit of what that sales cycle looks like.
Yeah, definitely. Let's hear it.
Cool. So obviously our team is doing full prospecting, presenting, and closing. So we're a full sales cycle team.
Wow. All from inside though.
All from inside, yep. And actually our outside reps too, they're full sales cycle as well. We have a team that's working primarily with our schools. They do a little bit of advertising as well. But we just break down the sales process into different categories. And I understand that there's a lot of people that have different learning ways, or they learn differently. So in each of the training sections, for example, we'll break down prospecting. And inside of prospecting, we know, hey, when we connect with our athletic directors, they might have businesses that are already supporting them. So those are great businesses we should call first.
Yeah.
So then we'll talk about that. And then I'll actually have this team member go and call athletic directors in their territory. And then we'll come back in 30 to an hour and then talk about, hey, how did those conversations go with your athletic directors? And then once they feel comfortable, we move on to the next section.
Wow. So you've got them calling and dialing. Is it fair to say on like Tuesday of the first week that they're on board?
Yeah. So if we start Monday, they might even call at the end of Monday if we get through the why quick enough. Otherwise, yeah, Tuesday we'll be calling, and
that's pretty
with
incredible.
Our athletic directors.
How have you seen that? Has that impacted obviously that's ramp time, right? But just walk me through that, how you feel it's really impacted your training and onboarding process. Yeah,
I think it's a really great way to break up the day and training can be a lot of information. So I had a lot of feedback when we first started doing training with reps that, man, I was exhausted after day one and day two.
Yeah.
I just felt like it was information overload. And so being able to take pieces of information and then go try them on your own, it allows for some time to really think about what we talked through, go try it out and have some conversations, and then come back and let's talk about things that went well, or maybe things that you feel like didn't go well. And they probably were still going well. You just start perceiving they didn't.
Yeah.
And it's good to have those conversations. And then I think it builds also some trust that it's not scary jumping on the phone. It's not so bad. I just learned one thing. I'll jump on the phone and all right, let's go to the next one. So
yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it's helped with the training process, breaking it down, not being so much information overload, but let's actually apply what we learn. And then once we feel like we're comfortable enough, we're going to move on to the next section of the process.
Yeah, I really love that because I think you're tapping into a couple of things. The first being that there's an abundancy of leads, right? Especially with your business. And maybe this isn't the case for every B2B company, but right, in most companies, there's really an abundance of leads. And I think so many companies like, well, we can't put our new hires on because, well, what if they burn a couple of leads? Well, who cares? Like there's so many other leads out there that even if they have the worst possible conversations, and chances are they won't, even if they do have these worst conversations, well, there's more leads out there. So I really love the idea of you already putting people, putting that information that they learned and translating it into actual knowledge. Because I think that's what's really missing in a lot of onboarding and training programs. And then you take the big scary out of getting on the phone, which is a real thing for a lot of sales reps. It can be for me as well if I'm learning a new product. And I think just you just totally shrink that timeline, and that's got to do just wonders for new reps, I would imagine.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about too the scary about, hey, if I burn a lead, what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. So my old supervisor, Chris Cradwell, he told me once, he was like, hey, Paul, you can't break anything. And so if you were to ask my team now, hey, what does Paul always say? That's like one of the first things he'll say, you can't break anything. And it's that mindset of, hey, we're just trying to have conversations with people. And so let's start that off right away during our training.
Yeah, I love that. You can't break anything. We're just trying to have conversations. Yep. You can always recover from that.
Right.
Awesome. All right. Anything else in your sales cycle or in your first onboarding and training process that you feel like, man, listeners, you really gotta hear this?
Yeah, no, I think just that's the same style we have throughout the whole process. So it's a lot of information, go try it out, come back, let's talk about it. Information, go try it out, come back. That's our cycle. And yeah, about 3 days. That's
great. Now, do you have a favorite tool that you're currently using for onboarding and training that you can share with the listeners and viewers?
Yeah, so we are using Salesforce and Outreach. So it's been fun to utilize those tools and show, hey, we can actually build some sequences that are going to be automatic to hopefully allow us to have more conversations. So as far as an actual training platform, we're usually just using PowerPoint or a Google Deck. And then a lot of it is just activity-based where it's conversational. But as far as the programs that we're using in training, Outreach and Salesforce are some of our favorites. And I think it's for the creativity piece of let's talk about building our sequences and how do you think you'll best connect with someone? So
that's great. How do you know when someone's actually ready? Like what's the check marks that you have in place to know, hey, once they get past this check mark or this stage gate or whatever kind of process you call it, how do you know when someone's actually ready to maybe graduate and graduate out of that training program?
Yeah, that's great. So I think when someone can articulate the why for what we're doing, then they're ready. It doesn't matter if they're scared to jump on the phone, but if you could really articulate why are we calling you and why does this matter to you and to our schools and to our communities, if you can articulate that well, you're ready to go. And so I think that's a reason that we're getting people quickly ramped up is we're really establishing that why early on. And throughout our whole training process, we're always bringing it back to the why do we exist and where does this tactical piece play into our overall why? So once a rep can fully understand that and vocalize, they're ready to go.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, let's transition a little bit since this is the Inside the Sales Playbook show. Let's get into your actual sales playbook. But first, I want to talk about, obviously we're recording this in September of 2020. Yeah, it's still September. I had to almost double check there. Some high school sports are still on, some are canceled. There's obviously a big brouhaha with college sports. Pros are playing, but they're playing to no crowds. So how and selling to high school specifically and athletic directors around high school athletic events, how has your sales playbook had to change since COVID and since the pandemic started back in March?
Yeah. I think the big key word here is adaptability. So it's been really cool to see our sales team, our leadership team, just think about different ways that our schools are being affected and also our local businesses. So for example, we implemented new ticketing systems because we knew schools wouldn't be able to probably have hand-to-hand ticketing just for contact tracing. And so we were able to implement that, and that was really great for our schools, and it's awesome for our local businesses now that they can have a platform. Hey, we know parents are still able to go to these websites and buy tickets online or maybe even live stream. We'd love to be part of that and help support our schools. Something I didn't mention before was the advertising actually helps keep the web platform free for our schools each year, and they get money back. So businesses love it because they're helping to support schools with this new technology. And that's really been our story is how have you adapted and where can we help you be better at where you've adapted? So schools right now are like, hey, how do I get people into my state? I have 25% capacity. How am I going to sell tickets? Well, now we have contact tracing with our ticketing. Or businesses, hey, I really want to support the school, but we just don't know if parents will be going to these websites. They're closed.
Yeah.
And our school team's been awesome with working with our athletic directors and coaches on, hey, let's promote stories about some of your student athletes. Let's do some coach highlights and do interviews with your coaches and really involve and get to know your coaching community. And our businesses love supporting that. They're like, I love Coach Smith. I'd love to be part of that. So I think just thinking out of different ways of how do you use an online platform, especially today when everything's going online, and then working on different solutions. I know it's pretty broad, but...
I think I got to imagine, too, I think that's a really smart play from a digital perspective. If you have people doing online ticketing, well, I got to imagine then you're collecting a pretty robust amount of email addresses and contact information that could then be used as almost another product to these retailers or to these potential end users. So we won't get too much into that, but I really, really like that. Now, Paul, do you have a sales playbook that your team follows? And if so, what's a play or two that you really love to implement with your team?
So when I would think about playbook, we don't have like a certain playbook where it's like a guide, a step by step. I'm very much a framework person. So we have different frameworks that I guess we use and we host in a Google Drive folder. But one of my favorite tacticals, and Mark, are you referring to tacticals right now?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool.
The actual like plays, what someone on your team could be doing on a day-to-day basis.
Got it. Cool. So one of my favorite tacticals is really identifying, is an objection just an innate response or is it a reality? And so our playbook here, our strategy here is to acknowledge any objection that we get. So let's acknowledge our customer, and I'll break down what that actually looks like in a role play. But we want to acknowledge someone. We want to relate to helping them understand you're not the only person who says this.
Yeah.
And then also we want to guide to build a solution for our customer if we have one. So for example, I'm sure a lot of listeners here have been called and maybe you're walking through Costco and someone said, hey, do you use Xfinity or AT&T? And you're like, I'm good.
I'm fine. Right? I'm totally good. Yeah. Don't talk to me, scary salesperson. That's something, Paul, I do. And I'm a salesperson. Right. Of course I don't want to talk to you, salesperson. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And we go, why? And we have no idea. They could literally have just said, oh, because you use Xfinity, I'm giving you $100. But it's just an innate response for us to say, I'm gone, right? Yeah. I don't want to talk. And so I always paint that example because we don't know what that person's really offering. They asked us a question and we're just giving an innate, I don't want to talk with you. So being able to acknowledge to figure out, okay, is this objection real or is it just an innate response? So being able to acknowledge that, right? So it's a mirroring aspect of
So what's a question you ask, or how do you elicit that out of your prospects?
Great. So if you were to say, Mark, if I were to call you and say, hey, Mark, I'm working with Temple High School. We're looking for just one insurance agent to promote on every page of their athletics website. Would love to set up time to talk with you. you might give me a response that says, hey, I'm really busy.
I'm just too busy, Paul. Too busy for you right now. Yeah.
Yep. So the acknowledge piece comes in with, hey, Mark, I totally understand. Thanks for sharing that you're really busy right now. So that's the acknowledge piece. We just mirrored what you just said to show I just listened. It's active listening.
Yep.
So now the relate piece is, hey, you're not the only one who's told me this before. So it might be, hey, Mark, thanks for sharing with me that you're busy right now. I totally understand that. Actually, a lot of times when we connect with insurance agents, we set up a call because I probably caught you out of the blue. And so I was just hoping to set up a 15-minute call today to learn more about how you're operating right now, especially in today's landscape, and how we can get you in front of parents in the community. So, and then here comes the guide part. Does 15 minutes work later today at 3, or would that work tomorrow at 9 a.m. better for you? Which one works better?
Love that. That's great. So you're acknowledging, you're relating to them. I really like it how you tie in other like similar positions, right? I'm sure you would change that if you were talking to the general manager of a bank versus an insurance versus the person who owns a grocery store. I love that. And then you're guiding them to a solution, right? You're only giving them option A that you want or option B that you want. I love that. I call that the alternative close. I think that's really smart.
Yeah. And at that point you'll know, were they really just busy, or was that maybe there's a hidden objection that is reality, and you're going to find that out at that point. And so it allows you to just show, hey, I'm listening to you, I understand you, and I want to build a solution for you because we work with a lot of people like you, and I think you'll really like what we have. Our job is to influence the decision. We can't make someone say yes or no, but we can influence, and that's a way that we're going to help position ourselves to influence best.
I really like that. Yeah, that we're there to influence. You can't make them say yes or no, but you can certainly influence the situation. Yeah, because I think if you're getting to a point where, hey, you're making them into a yes or no, will you buy or will you not buy? That's when we start getting into the sleazy salesperson and, the one where it feels like, gosh, I got to take a shower after just speaking with that person. I really approach. I think that's really congruent too with today's buyer as well. You may force someone into a sales situation that one time, but you're certainly not going to get a referral from them. You're certainly not going to get potential repeat business from them. And just the whole conversation with how you approach it is far different from the, hey, I'm going to try to, screw you into a deal as much as I possibly can here. I really, really like that approach, Paul.
Yeah, and you're going to get hung up on sometimes. That's okay. We're doing our part in at least trying to acknowledge and relate and then guide, right? So as long as we're doing that, one of my buddies, Chad Voss, always says, did you earn your beer at the end of the day in sales? Were you doing the things that help you influence a decision, and a decision that is well-educated, well thought out? So you might get hung up on. That's okay. It's okay to call the next person.
I like that. Move on. There's more prospects out in the sea. So we're coming into the fourth quarter of 2020. Yeah, I had to double check there. What's one thing every inside sales manager should be doing over these next 90 days? What's your piece of advice to maybe an inside sales manager that's like, man, we really need to have a strong Q4. What are some tactics or some things that you feel like, hey, you should really be implementing this over the next 90 days?
That's a really good question. So I think for remote environments, if you're an inside sales manager or a team that's remote right now, if you don't already, I think establishing a 30-minute block every single day for the whole team to jump on, a Google Hangout or a Zoom call, is really important. And you don't even have to have an agenda every time. So sometimes you want to have an agenda where it's, hey, let's role play through situations that each of us are hearing right now for insurance, and just have and call on people and just role play through. But sometimes I leave that space just for the team to talk and have fun together, and I have no agenda. And so I think what's cool about that is it begins to feel like the team atmosphere again. There's something to look forward to each day. At 2:30, the whole team's going to connect. We can celebrate together. We can talk about our fantasy football teams, or we can role play through situations that are popping up. So I think that's been really helpful for us to stay in contact each day. Even if you don't have an agenda, I'm a huge believer in meetings should have an agenda. And this one, I'm like, I don't care. That's okay.
Usually I say no agenda, no attenda, but I really like this. So you schedule it. So it's every day at 2:30 for your team, Monday through Friday. It's always on Zoom or a Google Hangout. And then usually it sounds like you kind of rotate through topics, maybe either a skill sharpening with role practice, or even giving the team an opportunity to vent. Does it ever turn into, what I would call like a sit and bitch type of situation, right? Where people are just complaining about, well, I couldn't do this or I couldn't couldn't do that. And if so, how have you changed that dynamic in that meeting?
Yeah, that's really great. So our team's awesome. The culture is just really established early on that we're solution mindset. So I think this is kind of a philosophical answer to this, but I think it really does play in part of why we're not doing the thing, right? Yeah. Our whole sales process and framework is based on how do we build solutions. So I'm very much, hey, when we have conversations, let's acknowledge, relate, and guide. That's our objection handling. I don't have a script for you. I want you to be creative in that, but follow that process and you'll set yourself up best, right?
Yeah.
And so I think because of our framework being, okay, we have a guideline, but I can be really creative in this and in my conversations. I think because of that, the team is just really creative. And if something's going wrong or there's a problem, there's a lot of, here's what I thought about, and I think we could try this. Like, I'm going to go try this. And so there's not a lot of, it's just us, this isn't working. Yeah. Our product's not good right now. It's a lot of, here's what I realize, and I'm going to try this solution.
And I think then too, you have an environment where people are open and probably want to bring solutions to that meeting, because naturally we want to be seen as helpful to the group. So I'm sure you've almost built in this culture of, well, hey, it's almost 2:30, so I should bring to the table what's really working for me so I can continue to be a part of the group and be a good member of the group. Even those like hidden, subtle, psychological things that people just want to naturally be a part of, I think is really, really smart, Paul. Awesome. Well, I think this is a good transition. Let's close with the final 5. So, Paul, these are 5 rapid fire questions. I ask them, you answer them. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right, let's make this happen. All right, so your favorite sales-related movie?
Sales-related movie. Man, I don't really watch many movies.
The first time we've stumped him all day today.
What's the one with Chris Farley? That's hilarious.
Tommy Boy.
Yeah, Tommy Boy. I think that was really funny.
Classic. All right, your favorite sales-related book?
I'm reading it right now, actually. It's Never Split the Difference. It's a great book. Highly recommend it.
That is a great one. That's by Mr. Chris Voss. Now, what do you know now that you wish you would have known when you first got into sales?
That it's all solution mind. It's creative, I'll say. So sales is really creative. It's not sleazy. It's just you're trying to help people. That's what it is, and you get to be creative doing that.
Love it. So you're trying to help people. That's great. Favorite social media follow?
Favorite social media follow? I actually really like following Cam Newton. There's something about him. He just works really hard and he has fun doing it. And you can just tell his leadership shows on the field too. So it's kind of a weird answer, but I really dig Cam Newton lately.
Now we'll take it. We'll take it. And the last question, your favorite purchase of 2020 that's been under $100?
That's under $100. Honestly, I think this book, Never Split the Difference. I bought it and it's been a great investment so far. So I know it's a double answer, but really that's probably my favorite purchase I've made this month.
We'll accept it. Paul, if our listeners and viewers want to connect with you, where's the best place where they can find you?
Yeah, my LinkedIn, I'm on there all the time, so feel free to reach out. I love connecting with new people as well, so don't be shy. Please reach out. LinkedIn. Be the
awesome.
Best.
I'll put I'll put your link in the show notes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's Mr. Paul Dunteman, the Inside Sales Manager with VNN. Paul, thanks so much for being on the Inside the Sales Playbook show with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.